Greetings, viewers. The reality-distorting cognitive dissonance induced by the globalists' propaganda, or perhaps I should say prop agenda machine, is truly breathtaking. The effects of this sick and sickening machine are such that it makes it almost impossible in the minds of common people throughout the world to resolve any issue of importance, thus undermining their sovereignty and making them dependent psychologically on those dispensing the many and varied forms of propaganda. The issues surrounding the conflicts in the Middle East are certainly no exception to this. And today we have the situation where virtually everyone who has an interest in those conflicts is being targeted. And as a wise person once said, it's impossible to fight an enemy who has an outpost in your head. In due course, I'll be producing videos documenting and explaining how this machine works, who is running it, and why it works the way it does, and how it targets various forms of ideologies and mindsets. Anti-Zionists of various stripes, Zionists of various stripes, Islamist jihadists of various sorts, people who consider themselves moderate Muslims, people who call themselves left-wingers, right-wingers, radicals, conservatives, libertarians, anarchists, people who see the so-called war on terror as being vital to the defence of Western civilization, others who see it as a fraud. But for now, I'll limit myself to looking at one small example from a recent event which occurred on the West Bank. This example will demonstrate that those who tell you that the Palestinians hate Israel, but that this is understandable and justifiable because supposedly the Israelis are monsters, and that those who tell you that the Palestinians hate Israelis because they're Arab Muslims who are supposedly little better than animals, are both seriously mistaken. As I always do, I provide plenty of links to articles and documentation in the description column. Don't forget to press the More Info tab, so that hopefully increasing numbers of you will start to do your own research. The Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, that is largely Fatah and not Hamas, recently disbanded a JENIN-based Palestinian youth orchestra called Strings of Freedom and banned its Israeli Arab conductor from ever returning to JENIN and deported her back to Israel effectively. What was her supposed crime? She brought these children into Israel to play in front of a group of Holocaust survivors. You can read about the details of this recent event in the various Jerusalem Post articles I linked to. What is particularly interesting is a number of things which stood out from these articles. For one thing, it is very well known and very well documented that the various Palestinian authorities, both Fatah and Hamas, distribute some of the most vicious, hate-filled anti-Semitic propaganda directed at their populations and targeting children in particular, and frequently involve children in military training. So the fact that an event like this could even occur is something of a miracle, it would seem. Furthermore, if you actually read what some of these Arab kids had to say, it's really quite fascinating. For a start, many of them didn't even know what the Holocaust was and were shocked to hear about it and expressed sympathy for the victims. Again, considering the vicious propaganda that they're subjected to, this is something of a miracle and should give everyone who seeks a peaceful solution, that is, reason for hope. Furthermore, this blows away the myth which exists in a lot of people's minds that Fatah are the moderates who genuinely seek peace with Israel, while Hamas are the extremists. While I'm certainly not going to apologise for Hamas, there is just simply no comparison, really, between them and Fatah. Hamas was not formed as effectively an offshoot of the German Nazi final solution. That's Fatah. Fatah have murdered far more people, both Arabs and Jews, than Hamas ever have. And in fact, Hamas are relatively new on the terrorism scene, whereas Fatah have been terrorists since the 1960s. Hamas does not have the kind of international, that is, globalist support that Fatah has. The Fatah-led PLO was given observer status at the United Nations back in the 1970s. I mean, this is extraordinary. You know, a terrorist organisation. This was in the days when no one pretended that the PLO wasn't a terrorist organisation, getting a seat at the United Nations. I know of no other terrorist group that has a seat at the United Nations. I've often heard the line from many Zionists. It goes along the lines of, the Palestinians voted for Hamas, therefore they don't want peace. Well, all I can say to that is, who should they have voted for? Who else could they have voted for? Fatah? After all, Hamas pay far more attention to providing social services and the like for the Palestinians. And I would say that is the primary reason why the Palestinian Arabs voted them over Fatah. So in other words, it wasn't a vote so much for Hamas, but against Fatah. And considering that at the highest levels, the Hamas and Fatah organisations actually cooperate, it is not unreasonable to posit the hypothesis that the whole Hamas-Fatah fight is essentially a charade, is essentially theatre, to provide, among other things, the illusion of democracy, and also to provide the illusion that Fatah are the moderates. Anyway, I could go on about the politics of it all forever. I provide links in the description column to various articles documenting and analysing all of this. But for now, I shall leave it to Yehuda HaKohen, the director of the Zionist Freedom Alliance, from his recent programme The Struggle on Israel National Radio, and hear what he has to say about the situation between the Arabs and the Israelis.
The PLO issued another warning last Wednesday to local Arabs against selling their homes or properties to Jews, saying that those who violate the order would face the death penalty. This blatant discrimination not only singles out the Jewish people based on our ethnicity, but robs the Arab people of their right to do business with whoever they choose. Peace can only exist between the Arab and Jewish nations when the two populations are able to interact with one another. But the Fatah-led PA today behaves as a puppet for Washington and has no interest in achieving peace. Their goal is to keep Jews and Arabs separated, to continue the conflict, and to rob the Jewish nation of portions of our land. Any Arab who chooses to interact with, do business with, or sell property to our people, despite the great risk to his life by his own leaders, is deserving of our protection, and our government should make it a priority to ensure that these Arabs remain safe. One of the biggest problems in Judea, Samaria, and Gaza today is that although many local Arabs privately oppose their own leadership and are against the establishment of a Palestinian state in our land, they know that if they voice their views publicly, they are risking execution. And no one from our side has made them feel confident that they will be protected. We have not only a moral obligation, but also a political interest in proving to our Arab residents here that we will do everything possible to protect them from the Fatah gangsters that the West has placed to rule over them. I believe, based on my own experiences, that if these people were confident that they and their families would be safe, we would see a mass movement of Arabs speaking out against the establishment of a Fatah or Hamas state in portions of our homeland.
Imagine if the Gazan and West Bank Arabs were given a real choice, and instead of choosing Hamas or Fatah, chose to live under Israeli rule, perhaps with autonomy or something similar. Then Arabs and Jews could form their own peace. The Western anti-Zionist movement would have egg on its face and collapse, and the warmongers on all sides would be neutralised. I look forward to the day. Catch yous later.